All right, there we go. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being here. This is Zoom Meetings for Education training session. I'll be your host today. My name is Elise. I'm part of the success team. I've got two friends and colleagues with me as well. I've got Kristen and Eleanor helping me in the background with the Q&A today. And we're all really happy to have you. We have 60 minutes planned for this training session. And this is one of my favorites because for 15 years before I came to work here at Zoom, I was teaching in the college classroom. I was doing mainly public speaking and some other communication courses. But for the last, handful of years in my teaching career, everybody was transitioning to online. And so for a handful of years or so, I was using Zoom. And so I have a little bit of experience there using Zoom as an online classroom. I'll try to bring for you today my experiences of what went really well and what I would recommend. And then I also will give you some other like best practices and tips and tricks that you might find useful as you're getting started here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda. I've got quite a lot that I want to do in the next hour with you. A few things in the beginning, and then we'll jump straight into this agenda. We will schedule a class session, and we can also talk about scheduling office hours if you want to use Zoom for that. And we will invite our students. Then we will, this is the fun part, start a Zoom meeting, and I'll show you how to manage and interact with your students. Lots of different ways you can do that, audio and video, of course, but then we'll go over some other things like chat, for example. Present your lectures. I know that was popular on the poll. So let me show you how I'm sharing my screen with you right now and how you could do a live lecture. I also will mention that you could record your lectures ahead of time. So I'll give you some tips there. Launching quizzes. If you are a pro licensed user, you'll have the ability to launch the poll like I did in the beginning today. And my idea is to use that maybe for some fun pop quizzes or get to know you. So we'll go over that. And then I know this one's really popular. Toward the end today, I'll show you how to break your classroom into small groups. We call those the breakout rooms. And then I'll show you how to set those up and manage those and talk about what you can do there. At the end, maybe you want to take attendance. If you are a pro licensed user, you will have access to the reports. So I'll show you where to find those. And then also we will talk about where to find recordings if you'd like to record any of your class sessions or lectures ahead of time. So those are my main plans for the day. Now there's a few more things that I wanted to mention and kind of point out before we jump straight into the scheduling and all of that. First, let's talk about the plans and pricing. I noticed that a lot of us from the poll have already signed up as a pro or licensed user. So this one right here, that means that you are a paid user of Zoom. You don't have to be paid to set up your classroom and have your Zoom class sessions there. You can sign up completely for free as a basic user. That is totally fine. The great news here is that your students do not have to worry about signing up for a Zoom account to be able to click, join, and fully participate in your online class sessions or office hours if you'd like to use Zoom for that. So don't worry about the students. Signing up is for you because you're going to be the host. So mainly that, this is directed toward the educators here. So you can always sign up by yourself if you wanted to. And when I was teaching at one of the schools where I was teaching, they didn't, sign up for Zoom. I just signed up on my own. I did pro, it's month to month. So I just signed up really for the semester and I used it in that way. That's fine. But I did want to mention, if you are signing up, more people, like maybe your entire department or your entire school district or your entire school, then you can look into this option called Zoom for Education account. And what that means is you can work with our teams here at Zoom to really customize the experience for the faculty and staff and students. And in some cases, you can even like set it up to where you can authenticate the students' identities as they're joining into the Zoom class sessions. So there's just a little bit more that you can do if you are signing up as a group for Zoom for Education, but that's not at all a requirement or anything, to be able to use Zoom as your classroom. Okay, so that's a little bit about the plans and pricing. The first part here is really directed toward the educators that are here today, and I know that's over half of us. We're going to talk about scheduling and inviting. You will be the host of the Zoom classroom. Before I take you over to the web portal and show you how to do all of this, let me make one more quick announcement. Again, this is something just kind of to note in passing. not a requirement. But if you are using a learning management system at your institution, and most of my experience was with using Canvas, then I just wanted to make a note. Check out marketplace.zoom.us and look up LTI, because Zoom can integrate with a lot of the learning management systems that are out there. You don't have to, but it does make it kind of like a streamlined shortcut for the faculty. So for example, this is an image over here of Canvas. If you integrate Zoom in Canvas, for example, then you'd be able to schedule your classrooms in Canvas versus coming out to the web portal and, doing it separately. So just wanted to kind of make that note there. The best thing to do after researching on marketplace.zoom.us is contact the help desk, the IT at your institution, and see if that would be, a possibility for you to be able to do that at your school, but not a requirement. And today I'm going to assume that most of us do not have a learning management system. So let's approach it as I am just signing up for Zoom. I want to set up some classes and some office hours today. So I'm going to take you to a different place. I've been sharing my slides. Let's transition over to my browser that I have set up for us. And I've got that, there we go, ready to go. This was the blog I was going to show you, and I'm now going to the home page of Zoom, and that is at zoom.us, by the way, in case you're new. And once you have signed up for your account and everything, you will be able to log in to your web portal directly from the website. Now, I've already logged into mine, and that's why it says my account, but it would say sign in over here. So let's imagine I clicked sign in, and I sign in with my email address and my credentials, and now I am in my web portal. Now, this will be the first place that you want to come, because you've got to do, some general setup of your account if you haven't done this just yet. Let me show you a few things like your profile and your settings, and then we'll go schedule some classes. Starting with our profile, this is where you want to check for kind of a basic summary of the Zoom account. One thing I would highly recommend, put a picture right here. And what happens is if you turn off your camera ever when you're in a Zoom meeting, then that picture will show instead of just a blank space. So it kind of personalizes it a little bit more. And then perhaps you want the students to call you, by a different name. You can always change how your name appears by clicking the edit option over here to the right. And then let's go down about halfway. Maybe you are here today, you're on one of those education accounts. So your school gave you your Zoom account, and you're not really sure what kind of user you are. You can always find out right here. License type, licensed, that means you're a paid or pro user. And if that says basic, that means you're on the free level of service with Zoom. Don't forget to check some other things like your language and your date and time formatting, and especially the time zone. And I'm in Atlanta, by the way, so I'm over here on the East Coast. Okay. After you're good with that, that's profile. Let's move on. The next step is I need to look through and become a little bit more familiar with my Zoom account settings. So I'm going to click right over here on settings next. And here they are. Now there's a lot of settings, and we don't have time to go over all of these today or we'll be here forever. So what I will do is let me just kind of make sure that everybody knows how the settings work, like generally speaking, and then I'll give you a few examples of some things you might want to check before you get started hosting your classrooms. So the Zoom account settings, these are your default account settings. And what that means is if you want access to use a certain feature when you are in the Zoom classroom with the students, you'll want to make sure that that feature is enabled or turned on ahead of time in the settings, or you will not have the button that you need whenever you get into the actual class session. It won't be on the toolbar. That's the idea here. And there's some different categories. So we've got meeting settings, recording settings, telephone settings, if that applies. That's only for pro users. But let's just start here under meeting settings. Scroll through these sections when you get a chance to kind of become familiar with these. But let me just give you, how about two pretty easy examples under meeting settings of some that I noticed were popular a little bit earlier today on the poll. So I'm going to scroll down under the section called In Meeting Basic Settings. And let's say I want to be able to share my screen with the students, show them my lecture live during my classroom. Well, I need to come down and find the setting for screen sharing. Here it is. And if that is not turned on, if that's not blue in my web portal, that means that I will not have a button in the Zoom classroom to share my screen with the students. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. Let's, make sure that's turned on so I can show you how to do that later. And then another really popular one, I know, under In Meeting Advanced, if you want to break the students into those breakout rooms, let's make sure that setting is turned on, that feature is enabled ahead of time. So that's what you'll do. And you'll notice everything has a description underneath it. You also will have access to the Help Center 24/7. There's lots of articles that will help you there. And then coming all the way back up to the top, don't forget, if you are planning to record, you've got to turn on recording as well. So in my account, you'll see I have local recording turned on. That's available to everybody. Even a free user can record locally. That means you're saving an MP4 file directly to your computer's hard drive. If you're a pro user, you'll also see cloud recording. That's what I'm doing today, by the way. I'll show you that at the end. And I have that one turned on as well. And that means I get a choice whenever I click record. But the main thing to know is if you want a record button, make sure those are turned on ahead of time. Okay, so that's the gist of it. Now, once this is ready and set up, those are your defaults. And that means they carry forward to all future Zoom classrooms. You don't have to keep coming back in here over and over again unless you just want to change something. Let's move on. So I'm ready to go. It's time to schedule some of my class sessions. And I will click on the Meetings tab over to the left in our navigation bar. You'll notice that I've already set up 2 classes for this semester. I've got COM 101, that's public speaking, and then I've also got COM 121, that's interpersonal. Let's set up a class from scratch today. So I'm going to come over here and schedule a new meeting. And you could do this for your office hours as well. So I'll show you that here in a second. It's same process. Okay, so let's make this a different class. We're going to make this COM 351, and this is my theory class. You can put a description or not. I usually just leave that blank. And then you've got the question here on the date and the time and the duration. And I'm assuming that you're probably going to meet with your students at regularly scheduled times during the semester. So my recommendation would be to explore some of the options under recurring meetings. So I'm going to click down here under recurring. And there's 2 things I'll highlight. It could be every day, but I assume maybe you're probably not going to meet them every day. So you might want to look into weekly, and then you can check mark, maybe I'm just going to meet the students on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or there's another option at the bottom called a no fixed time class session. And that means there's no date or time connected. I just want to get it scheduled and ready to go, and it sits there in my portal, and I can start it whenever I want. Now, when I was teaching, I really liked this option better. And I want to show you that in a minute. But for now, let's start with the weekly option. Let's just say you'd rather do it that way. It doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. I just want to show you the difference. So I'm going to say a weekly recurring class session on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I want that to go for the rest of the semester. Let's imagine that the semester will end on May 7th. Okay, let's go down. We're going to skip past some of this. The main thing I want to highlight, definitely security. Now you have to have at least one security option highlighted here, but for the most secure class session, I really like using both of these. I have a passcode, and I like to leave on my waiting room, especially the waiting room. So for the passcode, if you don't like the number that Zoom has come up with, you can always change that, and then you can make it a little bit more personal. That will be a capital C, by the way, so make sure they know that's case sensitive. Okay, let's go down, and we will officially click Save. So I have a schedule. There's my COM 351, my new class that I've scheduled, and I ended up doing the recurring, 2 days a week. I'm going to click Show All Occurrences. And that's a lot, right? I mean, and I can show more here. So that is a lot of sessions. Now, if you like that, that's totally fine. You've got all the dates and the times. And if you ever needed to, you could even come in here and edit or delete the sessions, as needed. And you could do it one by one, add more sessions if you want. But let me tell you why I didn't like doing it that way. I'm going to go back to my meetings list and watch this. So now I have it all divided by date. and it's there, but it's a lot, and it's really clogging up my web portal. And then I have another page here. So the difference is if you choose no fixed time, so let me delete this one. If you choose no fixed time, it appears in the web portal like this. So it doesn't have like every single date listed out. It's just listed as recurring. And then you can start this class whenever you need to. It doesn't matter the day or time. You just let the students know, hey, make sure you come to class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But it's always the same link and, the same information for joining. So that's what I used to do, just because I like how clean it looks, in the web portal. Totally up to you, though, what you would rather do there. So I'm going to click on, let's just click on public speaking. And now I'm back to that page where I have, the classroom all scheduled out and ready to go. Let me show you a few more things you'll want to know. Come on down. Every single classroom and office hour you schedule will have an ID that's associated with it. That's an important piece of information that you'll share with the students. You also definitely want to share the passcode with them if you're going to use that. And then this will be the link that the students need to click when it is time for them to join into that class session. Now, if you ever needed to make changes, roll down a little bit, and you can always edit something about the class, delete, start from here. We'll come back to polling here in a little bit. Let's go back up. So the main things the students need to know would be date and time, ID, passcode, and the link to join the classroom. An easy way to find all of that and just, share it with them is to click to the right side of my page, copy invitation. This will pop open, and then all I need to do is copy and paste, put that somewhere where the students can find that information. So if you're using a learning management system, paste that information in your Google Classroom, paste it in an email. That's the idea. You're just sharing that information with the students. Okay, so I've got a sample all set up and ready to go for you. Let's go back over here, and I'll show you what I would do, if I was teaching now. So I've got 3 classes, and then I went through that whole process, and I also created one that I'm just going to call Office Hours for the Spring 2021. Let's pick on one class. I'm going to go into COM 351. I'll click, and when it's time to share that information with the 351 students, I will make sure that they know the dates and times and then all of that information. And I can find that very easily, again, by copying the invitation from this page. And then if you're going to do it separately, like I've done in this example, don't forget that the students will need to know the office hours join information, and let them know that that'll be separate if you want to do it that way. So click in your office hours, and then maybe let the students know, I'll be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4. If anybody needs some live one-on-one help, this is the join information. Just pop in, make sure you've got your waiting room on. I'll talk more about that, and you can copy that information from here. So that's what I would do. Pretty, simple, just share it with them. Now let's talk about what the students are going to do. So from the learner's perspective, they're basically looking everywhere for the information. So you just want to make it easy for them to find. You might send it in an email if maybe that's the primary way that you're communicating with them. Maybe you have a class calendar. That would be, really nice and organized. What I used to do is I would use the Canvas, the learning management system calendar, and that way it was right there. They knew the dates and the times, and I would have the Zoom information. I also would create a separate learning module that I called Zoom, and then I would just put all the Zoom like join information and even some links to like helpful articles for them within the learning management system. But again, totally up to you and what makes sense. Then the students will find the information, and they can choose which device they'd like to use for joining the class session. So keep in mind that you can use Zoom on a phone, a tablet, and a computer. And if you have a preference for your students, you might want to let them know ahead of time. If you're saying something like, hey, a phone is kind of small, I'd rather you join from tablet or computer, maybe put that in your notes. And then once the students click that link to join, they will be connected to your class session, and they'll be able to participate. And I'll show you what all of that looks like coming up next. Okay, let's move on. Next part of today, oops, I did an extra click there, is the fun part. Zoom is going to be your classroom. So I get to show you the host perspective, the student perspective. I also have a lot of ideas and best practices that I'll throw out as we move forward. And one of my first best practices and ideas for you would be, remember how when you got here a little bit early, I had the welcome slide open and ready to go. Maybe do something similar. That way, if the students join early, at least they know they're in the right place. You could put maybe your name, put the name of the class session, have a picture or maybe the agenda for the day, and then you can just do that by sharing your screen. And I'll show you that a little bit later. Okay, let's imagine that we are students and we just clicked and we have joined into the Zoom class session. This is what it will look like from the participant or the student's perspective. And as you can see, their controls are somewhat limited. There are some things that they will always be able to do and see when they're in the Zoom classroom. And then there's some things that are controlled by you as the educator, and you can decide to turn them on or off. First, let's talk about what they will always be able to do. So their audio will be there. They can mute and unmute. They can turn on their cameras, turn them off, and they will be able to see a list of all the other students under the participants list. So everybody that's joined into that class session. The student can change their view if they want to do gallery view or speaker view. I'll show you what that looks like later. And the student will be able to leave your class session in the bottom right. Now, everything else that I skipped is actually optional, and it's up to you as the educator if you want to allow them to chat, for example. Do you want to let your students share the screen? Because you can let them do that if you want. Do you want to let a student record? By default, they cannot record. Don't worry, that is only available to the host. And do you want the students to send reactions or emojis, like nonverbal reactions to you? And you can always turn those on or off. And that's really it from the student perspective. Now let's do our own like kind of side-by-side comparison here. Along the top and the gold, these are the controls that the students will see at the bottom of their toolbar. And look how different that is from the host or the educator's viewpoint. These will be the controls that you may or may not see, depending on what you have turned on in your settings. And today I get to show you all of these. So let's take a look. As the host and the educator, you have control over the security. So let's go over that. You can manage the students, mute, unmute, some other things. You can use the chat or turn it off. You can share your screen. You can launch the polls if you are a pro user. You can record. You can turn on the live transcription for subtitles like we're using today, and you can break them into the small groups. So we'll cover all of that. Okay, let's get started. First part here, how will I manage and interact with my students? And a lot of this will be the basics. So just kind of the main things you need to know how to do, audio, video, etc. The first thing that happens when you start the Zoom meeting, it will ask you to join audio. And my recommendation for the best experience is to just click that blue join computer audio. Now, what that means is audio joined through the internet. And that is what I am using today with this headset. We consider this a best practice, by the way, using a headset or something like this for the best audio. Now, once I am joined into the audio, this will become a microphone. And that lets me know, okay, I'm good to go. You'll also see my camera there to the right. Now, in my example, I have the red slashes over both of them. That means the students can't hear me and the students can't see me. So I need to turn those on, and it's very easy, one click. So I'll click one time on the camera, click one time on the microphone, and now they can see me and hear me. Now here's another menu that you'll want to know about. The small up arrows to the right. I'm going to click first on this one next to the microphone. These are your audio settings. And really, I mean, how you think about this is you're just check marking which microphone and speaker you would like to use for the class session. Now, a real example for you today, my headset is called Plantronics, and I've check marked that as my microphone in this example. So I'm using this. I've also check marked Plantronics as the speaker, so I am listening through the headphones. Easy as that. And if I ever needed to switch my audio source, I can do that during class, just check mark something else. Now, if you're curious why I said this is the best practice using a headset, I'm going to let you hear this. Let me switch my microphone to something else.
I'm actually going to use, this is my built-in laptop microphone. Probably sounds really different, and I might sound, pretty far away. Let me switch it.
Now I am back to using my headset microphone, and that's the big difference in the sound, quality that I was mentioning there. Now, here's another thing that you can do, and also your students can do this. Test your speaker and your microphone. That's a sound check, and you might want to do that. If anybody's having trouble, you can do that. Just answer the questions here, and then you just check, make sure everything sounds okay. Okay, next to the camera, it's the same idea. My video settings, check mark which camera I'd like to use. Real example for you today, I'm using an external HD webcam, and I've mounted it right up here where I keep looking today, and that one is check marked under my selection here. If you like the virtual backgrounds, that's how I'm in the classroom. That's not really where I am. And then also the filters, I'll show you those later. You can play around with those. And then let's click on video settings at the bottom. This is a great tip that I like to give everybody. So let's say I come into the Zoom classroom, my camera is off, I see red slash. I'm going to click the small up arrow, video settings, and I will open up these settings that are pulled from the software, the desktop client that's downloaded on your computer. And what I like about doing this is I will be able to see myself right here. It almost acts like a mirror, so I can check to make sure everything looks okay before I decide to come over here and then turn on my camera. So that's something that I like to do, when I'm first joining into a meeting or a class session. You'll find a lot of other settings from here. This is where you find the backgrounds and the filters and some audio settings. So become familiar with these settings as well. And if you need some help on desktop client, let us know at the end. I can always show you that. Okay, now let's imagine we're in the class session. We have some students that have joined in up here. Let's talk about the view. This one is called speaker view. And what that means is the person speaking will be really large on your screen like this, taking up a bunch of space. You can change your view as the educator anytime you want, but keep in mind, every student can also change their view anytime they want. So it's up to each individual participant how they would like to look at the class session. And when I was teaching, I just think this one looks great. Let's go to the top right corner, view, and I liked this one, gallery view. Then I could see the students a little bit more equally, in size on the screen versus speaker. But it's totally up to you, and you can switch it. If you switch it a million times, it doesn't matter. Nobody can see you switching it. You're only affecting your view of the screen. And then the fun things down here that I mentioned, if you have the reactions and the nonverbals turned on in your settings back in the web portal where we were in the beginning, your students will be able to send you some great nonverbal feedback, which is fun because, if you ask a question or something, sometimes if you've got, let's say 35 students, that could take a lot of time to wait for them to answer the question. So instead, you could just say something like, hey, everybody give me the thumbs up if you're ready for a water break, or, whatever, and then you'll be able to see the thumbs up coming in there. Okay, let's take a look at a larger gallery view. Now, by default, the largest is 25, but it depends on your computer. So if your computer can support this view, then you could do 49 per page. If you've got more students than that, that's okay. You'll have some arrows. You can slide through all the pictures of the students there. So kind of neat, I think, to be able to see everybody like that. Let's go back down to our toolbar. So we're going to move over here now. Security panel. Now, this is a big one and probably one of the biggest things that I need to show you for today. As the educator and the host of this class session, you have control over a lot. And most of that control comes from right here in the security panel. Would you like to completely lock the door to your class session? And if you do that, just know that nobody else can join, not even if they have the link. They will be blocked, so you're locking the door. You can always unlock it if you needed to. Enabling your waiting room, I highly recommend it. Just leave that check marked, because what it does is it stops them in a virtual waiting space. I'll show you later. And then you can admit the student, make sure it's your student, and then admit them whenever you're ready for them to join. show or hide profile pictures. And then remember how I said you have control over what options the students have on their toolbar? Here's where that control, a lot of it comes from right here. Would you like to let your students share their screen? You could maybe take turns, have them show something to the class, let them type in the chat, rename themselves, unmute themselves, turn on their cameras, yes or no. If you want to switch it up in the middle of class, that's totally fine. Come in here and check or uncheck any of these options. So imagine this, you need someone to do a presentation. You can mute everybody except for that person, and then do not let them unmute themselves. Now everybody is stuck on mute, and you have that kind of control. Then this big one at the bottom, this red button down here. Let's imagine all chaos has broken loose in class, and you need to completely just stop everything. That's your suspend button. That will cut every microphone, every camera. Nobody can chat, nobody can share screen, and then you'll be able to come back in here and decide what you want everyone to be able to do at that time. Okay, so that's security panel. Let's move one over to the right. This is our participants panel. This is where you get to manage the students. Now I get to see a list. These are all the students that are joined into class. I can see if their cameras are on or off, their microphones are on or off. I've got that mute all button if I just need to cut every microphone I can. And then let's go to one of my students. We'll pick Robert here. The more drop-down list. I have some things like turn off his camera, but keep this in mind. If you are a pro licensed user, and let's say you have a teaching assistant, you need them to be your co-host. You can make someone a co-host from right here, the more drop down. Now, Robert, to become my co-host, he doesn't have to have a Zoom account, a Zoom license, nothing. He just needs to be a person on this list, and then he can become the co-host. Co-hosts can help you launch polls. They can help you mute and unmute people. They can help you set up the breakout rooms. They can move around breakout rooms. Lots more permission for a co-host. The main things a co-host cannot do: start the class session for you and end the class session for you. They cannot do those two things. You have to do that. A little bit later, we'll talk about closed captioning. Maybe I want Robert to do a recording. I can let him record, or I can even put somebody back in the waiting room. I think this is a great one to know about for office hours. We'll talk about that. I can remove someone, and I can even report somebody to Zoom Trust and Safety if I ever needed to do that. Hopefully not. Okay, come up here. Let's imagine, so we've opened class, or let's say we've opened office hours, and I have my alert here letting me know that I have a student out there in the waiting room that would like to come in. If I recognize their name and everything, I can admit from here, or what I kind of like to do instead is I'll come back down here to participants panel, and now I have a separated list. These are the students that are out there waiting, and these are the students that I've already let come into class. So from here, I can decide either one at a time. I can remove, so go away from the waiting room, you're not allowed, let them come in one at a time. Or if I recognize everybody's names, I could even admit all and just pull everybody in at the same time, without doing it one by one. Now let's talk about waiting room for a minute. When they hit the waiting room, they are not together. So don't worry about that. They can't see each other, hear each other. They can't see you or hear you. They are each in their own individual virtual waiting space. And they're just there, waiting for you to let them in. Now, while they're waiting, you can send a one-way chat message. They can't reply, but it is one way to just say, and I could imagine this with office hours. I send the message out to Alan, hey, I'm with a student right now. If you'll wait for a few more minutes, I'll let you in for office hours. So you could just kind of let them know that you see them. When they're waiting, this is what they will see. And that's it. It's just like a welcome screen. Please wait for the host to let you come in. You can't send music to a waiting room. You can't send PowerPoint slides or anything like that to waiting room. Only the one-way chat. Okay, let's go on. Speaking of chat, if you want to allow that, and when I was teaching, I would usually leave it on, and during the lecture, I would encourage the students to write in questions or comments, so it would kind of, be a little bit of a lively discussion usually. But you can control the chat quite a lot as the host and educator. I'm going to click on the three dots from here. And if you like what I did today, I disabled the chat. That means only I can use it. I chose participants can chat with no one. And so I'm the only one because I'm the host that can send out those messages. I can open it up a little, I can open it up a lot, but just remember that if you are allowing direct or private messages, that means that two students could private message each other in the chat and you would not see that message. So you just kind of want to keep that in mind. From over here, the two drop down, that's where you choose who's the message going to go to. And then also, I love this one for education. If you have a file, like a handout, let's say that you'd like the students to download, attach it in the chat, file transfer, then it'll pop up right here and they will be able to download that file. Okay, live transcript. So most of us should have a live transcript. If you are a free user, you can still use closed captions at this time. Live transcript will come in the future. So for closed captioning, you can either have someone type, you can type, or you can integrate with a third-party closed captioning service. So when I was teaching, I just contacted the Accessibility Accommodations Office on my campus. They hired someone from their office to come, and she typed all the closed captioning for me live during my class session, which was a great help because I didn't have to worry about it. But this new feature that we have is so amazing. That's what the one I'm using today. Live transcript is so easy to turn on. You click the button. That's it. So enable auto transcript. There it is. And now everything that you say will be transcribed and the subtitles will be available. Now, you might remember this was a long time ago now, but in the very beginning, remember I said you have some options on your settings? Well, you have those same options when you're the host or the educator. So for today, like sometimes the subtitles are a little bit distracting to me personally when I'm training. So I hide the subtitles from myself. But since I've enabled them, that means that I am offering them to you as my guest. And then you can decide, what setting you'd like to choose from there. So everybody gets to choose their own settings, which is great. Let's talk about sharing the screen. So this is my idea for presenting your lectures. And of course, you can do this live, synchronously if you're having some live class sessions. But one little tip I had for you, and this is what I used to do, I would just start a Zoom meeting by myself. I would share my screen, click record, and now I have a recording, an asynchronous, lecture that I can give to the students ahead of time, ask them to watch it, and then I would save our live time, our one-on-one time for discussions or breakouts or something along those lines. That's just an idea if you wanted to consider that. Let's talk about sharing screen. I'm going to click that green button. And how you think about this is you're simply letting the students see your monitor. That's it. So whatever you want to open, it doesn't matter what it is, a picture, a video, a website, a diagram, a PDF, you just open it on your monitor and let them see your monitor. That's what screen sharing means. You have some options though. So option one, if you share an entire desktop, remember that they will be able to see anything and everything on your desktop. And if you have notifications or text messages coming in, they're going to see those too. So just kind of keep that in mind. To create more privacy, you can always share a single application instead. So let's say I just check PowerPoint only. Then they will only see the PowerPoint application on my screen and nothing else. So you could do that instead if you want. You can share or mirror from your iPhone or iPad. And if you have the whiteboard setting turned on back in the web portal where we were earlier, you can share a whiteboard, which is really fun. You could, doodle and brainstorm there together. I'll show you that later. One quick thing I wanted to mention, under the Advanced tab, I was thinking maybe today we have some math instructors or maybe art or something where you need the students to see your hands doing something. You can share content from a second camera that's hooked up to your computer, like a dock camera or something like that. That's under the Advanced tab up here if you needed to explore that option. Okay, let's go back to basic. And then if you got here a little early today, a lot of people will ask me about this. How did you share the music? All I did was I shared my computer sound, clicked play on Spotify or iTunes, whatever you use for music, and then you are able to hear that music coming from my computer. If you plan to show a clip, so let's say you're opening YouTube and you have a video clip, don't forget to optimize, and that just makes sure that they can hear the video. It also reduces the frame rate so that it's a smoother playback for them as they're watching the video. Let's click share. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Okay, so probably like one of the biggest things that catches people off guard is your toolbar jumps. It pops up to the top and that floats around. So if it's ever in your way, just click it and grab it with your mouse and pull it. You can slide it out of the way. I actually took mine today and I put it over here on my other monitor, so it's totally out of my way, but I can still see it, out of the corner of my eye if I need to. And then this green frame that you see, that lets me know this is what the students can see right now. So that, is kind of the indication, letting you know that. Now, the fun thing that I've been doing for you all day today, I turned on an annotation tool, and you might have noticed that. That's how it's following my mouse. Now, annotations are available anytime you're sharing the screen. It doesn't matter what you're sharing, turn it on, and now you can annotate. You can type words, you can draw lines, there's like arrows and shapes. Stamp tool has like X's and question marks and hearts. And then this is the one I'm using today, which I think is great for education. Spotlight, that little red thing will follow your mouse. And I think that's kind of helpful to let the students know, where to look on the screen. Format, that just changes colors and fonts. You can undo, redo, clear out, or save a picture, kind of like saving a screenshot if it's really good and you want to look at it a little bit later. Now, here's the really cool thing about annotations. You can do them, but so can the students if you want to allow that. Here's where you control it. I'm going to click on the 3 dots, the more drop down. And if I do not want my students drawing on the screen with me, I can disable attendee annotation. And if I wanted to do it this way, I could show the names of the students that are annotating with me on the screen. I could do it that way. And some of your other tools are under here and the more drop down. Okay, let's go to the whiteboard because I always get this question. What's a whiteboard? Well, that's it. It's just a white space. Turn on those annotations. You and the students can brainstorm, have some fun, and maybe save a picture of it after that. So like I mentioned, if you wanted to do something like this ahead of time, just start a meeting by yourself, click record, and now you will have a recorded lecture that you can share with the students. And I'll show you at the end where to find the recordings. Let's do polling, and then we've still got breakout rooms. Okay, polling is the feature that is available to pro licensed users if you're a paid user, and all of your polls can be set up ahead of time. So we need to leave class for a minute. Let's imagine that we're back in the initial process where we were scheduling out the class session. I'm going to click on this one. And your polls are set up ahead of time at the bottom. So let's roll all the way. Now, my idea, of course, was to use like the quiz idea. You don't have to do that. You could do like get to know you or whatever you want. But I've already got a chapter 1 quiz. The maximum number of polls is 25. So you could have 25 chapter quizzes. Underneath each poll, the maximum questions, 10. So that's a lot of polling. And get it all set up ahead of time. You just click add right here and then set up your questions. Set up a title for the poll, so chapter 1 or whatever, and then down here, you add more questions, maximum of 10. You can run a report of all of the polls that you launch during class. So that's my idea is, you could always score it or grade it after class is over if you wanted to treat it as a quiz. If you want to grade it, do not make the poll anonymous because that means the students' names will not show up in the report. So that's just a little note for you there. One last tip on polling before we go back to class. If you are using a bunch of these polls, from semester to semester, don't forget, save your class as a template because templates remember all the polls and then you won't have to come back and type it all back in again, which could be a lot of work, especially if you have 25 of those. So that's another tip for you. Okay, let's go back into class and launch the poll. So I can launch it as the host and so can my co-host. Drop down arrow. These are the polls that I have set up and ready to go. Just choose which one. If I'm the host, there's one extra special thing I can do. Click edit. I can change or add a poll even in the middle of the class session if I have a really good idea. And then the rest of polling is very easy. You just follow the directions along the bottom here. So let's do it. This is what I did for you earlier today. I launched the poll and then you'll see everybody sending in their answers. end the poll when you're ready. And now I have two choices: share the results, or if I don't want to, I don't have to, exit out of the poll if I don't want to share. Let me share though. So click share. And now the students are viewing the results. They will only see the percentages. They won't see the numbers over here to the left. Stop sharing when you're ready. And then if something went wrong or you just kind of want to redo it, you can relaunch a poll. It'll clear out the old answers. You'll get all new answers for that same poll. And the report will be the new, the second time you launched it. I'll show you reporting at the end. Okay, let's wrap it up with some breakout rooms, and then I'll show you the reports and recordings. Breakouts are available to everybody, even free users. And how you think about this is you are simply taking your larger Zoom classroom and you're going to break it into little Zoom classrooms. So, I mean, it pretty much looks the same. It's just a way of managing people in smaller groups, just like we did in the classroom. This group come over here, this group go to that corner, this group come over here by the door. Okay, let's talk about setting this up. You can set it up as the host. Your co-host can set these up for you, but please communicate with one another and decide who's in charge of it. Because if you both try to do it at the same time, those will be competing breakout rooms. So one or the other, person needs to do it. In this example, I will choose 4 breakout rooms. I can either let Zoom assign everybody randomly for me. I can do it manually. That'll take, a little bit of time, but I can sort everybody if I want. Or I can let the students choose their own room. If you want to use this option, make sure everybody has the most updated version of our software and they've downloaded that update. Let's click create. Let's start at the top because I know at first it looks like a lot. So the breakout rooms are not started just yet. This gives me some time to organize them. I have the 4 rooms created. Perhaps I'd like to give the rooms a name. I could do that. I can delete rooms. These are my students. I can move them and sort them as needed, click assign or move. Once I get it all set up and I'm happy, there's one more thing I've got to do. Click the gear icon in the bottom left corner, and I need to choose my settings for the breakouts. This is kind of what we already talked about. Let them choose their own room. Let the students return to the main classroom. That means, are you okay with them leaving their breakout and coming back whenever they want? Automatically move the students when I click open. So if I have that check marked, they automatically push out. If I don't have it check marked, they receive an invitation and then they click join. Up to you. Put a timer. I kind of like that idea on the breakouts. And how about a countdown or warning? You've got 30 seconds. Wrap up your breakouts. I like both of those there. Okay, then once it's ready to go, I'm going to click the button, open all the rooms. And now just try to visualize this with me. Okay, the breakout rooms are in progress. My classroom over here clears out. Everybody's gone. All the students are out there in these little breakouts. As the educator, so host and co-host, can move around. I could go and meet with every individual breakout room if I wanted to, and I can move, freely at will. I just keep clicking the breakout button and I would say join, and then I just move around the rooms. Another great thing that we can do is broadcast a message to the breakout rooms. Now, this is simply a typed message. So you just type it in, hey, everybody, let's move on to question 2. And then you broadcast it out and it goes to all the rooms at the same time. Now, this is probably the biggest question I get for breakout rooms. This is the only thing that you can send out to all the breakout rooms from here. You can't send music. You can't send PowerPoints. You can't send polls out to breakout rooms. You would have to join a breakout room, share your screen. Join a new breakout room, share your screen with them. So you'd have to just move around and share your screen in that way. That's more of how it works. Okay, when you're ready, let's say it's time to wrap it up. Close the rooms. They will receive the 30-second warning. We'll come back to the main classroom, have a little debrief, and those are your small group sessions. So really fun, just kind of, play around with that, try it out sometime whenever you get a chance. Let's wrap it up with some reports and recordings. I need to go back to my web portal. We're going to imagine class is over, and I need to see, who all showed up. I need to give credit. If I'm a pro user, I will have reporting. Now, this is where I can run the reports of the polls if I wanted to grade them. Meeting reports, polling reports. If I just want attendance reports, that is called a usage, and that will tell me who all showed up, when they joined, and how long they stayed, and all of that. And then let's imagine I recorded. I need to click recordings from my navigation bar on the left. If I'm a free user, that means all my recordings are local. They're just on my computer. This will tell me where to find that MP4 file. If I'm a pro or a paid user, this is what I'm doing for you today. I really prefer cloud recordings. We give you 1 gigabyte of storage, and this is what happens. When I share this with you tomorrow, all I have to do is click share, click show. I'm opening this box, copy and paste that link, and that is it. I'm done. So I've shared a 60-second recording with you, or sorry, 60-minute recording. I do not have to upload it. You don't have to download it tomorrow. You just click the link. And if you have an internet, you'll be able to watch that recording immediately. Now imagine this, one more great tip for you. Maybe you want to share a cloud recording, but you don't want the students to be able to access that cloud recording during the exam. You can set up an expiration date of when that link expires, and they are no longer allowed to watch that recording. So you can really control it from here if you use cloud recording. Okay, wrapping it up. We've only got a couple minutes left. For your bonus credit, so this is my quote unquote bonus for us today. Today, we have really focused on using Zoom as a classroom. So we talked mainly about teaching and learning. We did touch a little bit on the idea of using it for office hours under virtual engagement, but there are so many other ideas that you can explore for how to use Zoom in the education space. I'll just point out a couple. Guest speakers, invite people to your Zoom classroom. They don't have to go anywhere to give a lecture or a talk to the class. Parent-teacher conferences, this is what we've been doing at my kids' school. So I get to meet their teacher on Zoom. I don't have to go up to the school and go in the building. Professional development, teaching observations, training like we're doing today, work groups, or even online conferences, have people present their research, like we used to in person. School district wide, you can have your meetings, your staff meetings, interviewing over Zoom, perfect. Announcements and demos. So just a few other ideas that you might want to consider there. Thank you all so much. And thanks for staying the whole time. I know this was a ton of information in 60 minutes. I have been recording this whole thing, and I will email you in 24 hours. You can watch, any part of this again if you needed to. I will wrap it up today with some best practices, how to get more training, some support, and then any leftover Q&A. Let me go ahead and send you something. If you look down in the chat, I'm sending you COVID-19 support, Zoom for Education, Accessibility, Download Center. That's where you can make sure you have the most updated client, the software. And then at the very, very bottom, if you would like to give us some feedback today on the training, that's my personal survey, and we'd love to hear from you. It's really short, I promise. So thanks ahead of time if you're able to do that today. Thanks. Okay. Tips and best practices. Double check the settings. Remember when we did that at the very, very beginning, we went through the web portal and I said, make sure it's turned on if you want to use it during class. So do that ahead of time. Keep your desktop client up to date. Go to the download center, the link that I put in the chat. Make sure that you're on the most recent version of the Zoom client for meetings, and that will make your experience a lot better and smoother in Zoom. I mentioned this before, the headset is a great best practice for audio. And then I kind of mentioned this once, I'm using multiple monitors, and I found that to be really useful whenever I'm doing the training. So I thought that might help you with teaching as well. I share my screen from this monitor, and then everything else is over there on that monitor, and I can kind of see it out of the corner of my eye. I've got the chat over there. I've got my participants panel. I even have a little thing of notes. I've got my settings from my desktop client just in case I need to check my video or check my microphone. And then I don't like to look at myself whenever I'm training, so I take my camera feed and I pull it over there so it's out of my way, and out of the corner of my eye though. Mute yourself. So maybe make an announcement about this to the students. You don't want to have a lot of disruption. So if someone's in a noisy environment, just let them know. Keep that red slash over the microphone, if you're not talking. Practice with your camera. Hopefully you plan to keep on your camera. Really does enhance the connection with the students. I know they want to see you and you want to see them too. So practice a little bit with lighting and the positioning of the camera. Eye level is what looks the best. And you might have to add some lights. That's what I ended up having to do here in my home office. For more training, we'd love to have you back, and we host these Monday through Friday. They are always live and they are always free. You never have to pay for training with us. You are invited back to any of these sessions. Just sign up, zoom.us/live training. That's our webpage. And then I mentioned this, I didn't really show it to you, but I mentioned it, the Help Center. This is your #1 place to come anytime you have a question about Zoom. Support.zoom.us. Type in your keywords. We have articles and we have video tutorials to help you on a lot of different things from our Help Center. Thank you all so much. And thank you also to my amazing colleagues and friends. They've been in the background just typing away. They've answered all of the questions that came in today. So that made my job so much easier. Thank you so much. And have a lovely rest of your week and weekend coming up. I'll email you in 24 hours. Thank you all so much. And thanks for all that you're doing, educators. See you later. Bye-bye.